Good afternoon, boys, girls and gentlebods. Welcome back to the shed. Today I'm going to be tackling part 4 of the air rifle overhaul. I've been doing a little bit of shopping on the internet for some parts that were missing. The screws, that's the locking screw for the cocking lever pivot, and the 2 front screws that hold the stock to the body of the gun. I've also bought a telescopic sight for it. This is the same one as I've got on another air rifle, so I know it's a good one. It's a BSA, it's a good well-known make, good brand, and they work very well. Nice accurate scope. Not madly expensive, about 37 quid. And I've also invested a tenner in a new gun slip for it. There was a gun slip with it, but it was a really nasty false leather, fake leather, fur-lined thing. Looked like Arthur Daly's coat. It was horrible. So it went in the bin, and I've invested a tenner in a new one. I know I wasn't going to spend very much on this gun, and I'm trying not to. I'm currently up to around about 60 quid, I think. So not a huge amount of money, although probably more than the gun is realistically worth. But hey ho, it's only money. Right, anyway, enough of my waffle. I'll move the camera and we'll get stuck in. Okay, so here we are back where we left it. The first thing I'm going to do is put that locking screw in to the cocking lever pivot here. If you remember, when I put that screw, the locking screw was missing. So I ordered a new one online. So that's that. I also need to fit the detent plunger and its spring in the end of the cocking lever so that it locks closed. There's the loading tap to be fitted, but if you remember at the end of the last video I discovered a problem when cocking the gun, that the pressure from this link pushing that way pressed that part into the end of the cylinder and was scoring it and damaging it. Well, if you can see there, I've made a nylon channel. It's just a piece of nylon. I've cut it a little bit rough, but it will do the job, and I've super glued it in position, and now that stops that link rubbing against the metal body and causing any more damage. So that's what I've done, that's how I've solved it, and it seems to work quite well. I also need to assemble the trigger and sear in here so that then we can cock it fully. So I think I'll start off with the detent plunger. And when I got the gun, the detent plunger was broken. It had snapped off. So I could buy a new one, but I decided instead to make one, simply because I could. I have a little lathe at work, and I was able to machine up a small plug, file a slot into it. I actually made 2. That one has gone rusty for some reason. I don't know why that one has gone rusty and that one hasn't, but we'll use the bright shiny one. So that's the detent plunger, that's its spring. And they're held in place by this tiny little pin. So I think we will put a little dab of grease on it, just to enable free movement. Make sure it doesn't go rusty. So what I'm going to have to do is take that off the gun stand and do it on the bench, because I'm going to have to tap it in. And again, unfortunately, I haven't got a small hammer here, so it's going to be the vintage claw hammer. Alright, so I've got it greased nicely. Push that in, hold that in place, and then the pin should hopefully go through. It's got gone in nicely. Just needs tapping home. Wipe any surplus grease off it. That's nice. And that locks on. Ooh, locks on really well. Goodness me. It is okay. It's probably just because it's new and there was a little bit of rust on the surface of the retaining latch. As you can see on the end of the plunger, that's wiping off. So that's nice now. So that works nicely. Right, next part, I think we'll put the trigger and sear together. So there's the sear. This is the piece that actually latches onto the piston. Put that there. That's the trigger itself and its spring. Get the sear the right way around. Move that back into shot a little bit so you can see a bit clearer what I'm doing. And then again we've got two of these little pins, one for the trigger and one for the sear. If I move that along a bit. So the sear goes in first. Just give that a bit of a wipe off. Maybe just give it a lick of grease. And then that goes in there till the hole lines up. That looks good. That's it. That pin just goes in. Now the trigger is a bit more fiddly, because we've got to get that tongue of the trigger engaged in the fork of the sear, like so, and we've also got to get this spring to align over the hole so that we can get the pin through. The first thing I'll do is see if we can get the pin to line up on the spring, hold the spring in position, maybe rotate that over and have a look where we're at. Yeah, that's the pin through the trigger, but the spring has dropped out. So this is going to be one of those fiddly little jobs. It might take a minute or two to get this right. I will apologise if you can hear a bit of a noise in the background. It's a little fan heater because it's -2 degrees outside and it's not a massive amount warmer inside in the shed. Oh, that's it, we've got it. So that's the trigger mechanism attached. Now I should, all things being equal, be able to cock that, except it's such a strong pair of springs I don't think I'm going to be able to fully cock it without the stock attached. So I think I might just screw the stock onto it temporarily and then we'll see if we can get it to cock and latch before we go any further. Back in a moment. Right, that's the stock screwed back onto the body. Oh, goodness me. It takes some doing, but yes, it does cock. So I'll just uncock that. I'm amazed at how much effort is required to cock that. Truly amazed. Take it back off the stock. Right, so we know it'll cock, even though it takes superhuman strength to do so. The last remaining piece to do on this is to fit the loading tap. So I'll just clean out its port, make sure there's no debris in there. It's going to give us trouble. And I bought a new loading tap for it. There wasn't anything really wrong with the old one, but I thought, well, why not? So there's the old loading tap with that rough nylon washer. I suppose it did the job. And there's the spring and its nut. And there's also this little screw to go in there. Which just acts as a stop for the loading tap. Drop that in. That rotates nice and freely. And you can see there, that lines up to the loading port well. So now we'll turn that over. Actually, I'll put a little bit of grease on that. It certainly won't hurt it. And the grease will actually hold it in place while I put the spring and nut on. So then the spring and then the nut. I should probably make a tool to tighten that up properly. For now I can just push it into place with that. Yeah, because there's going to be the problem, because it's not been tightened up fully. When I push the loading tap to open, the nut stays where it is, but when I swing the loading tap back to the loaded position, the nut undoes a fraction. So over time that nut will come undone. Now I could be an animal and just use a little punch and hammer and just tap it into place to lock it tight, but I think what I would rather do is just make a little tool. It only needs a little circular, probably make it out of an old bolt, if I can find a big enough bolt, and just put 2 pins in it to locate into that, and that can be locked round then, tightened up. That is complete and ready to be mounted to the stock. I'm not going to do that just now. I've had it on there once and tried it, and it locks, it cocks and loads okay. But I've got a fair bit of work to do on the stock as yet. I just move that out of shot, or out of the way rather. Bring the stock in. Now, I found this picture on the internet of the cross hatching that should be on the pistol grip section, and these grooves that run along here. Obviously the grooves were on a different generation to this particular gun, because there is no trace of the grooves on there, but I think they make a nice addition to it. So I'm going to have a go at cutting them in and recutting this cross hatching, which is quite detailed, and cutting those grooves in. You can just see the outline of where the marks, where the cross hatching on the grip used to be. So what I'm going to do is pencil that in as best I can, following that as a pattern, and then with the aid of these woodwork carving knives that I bought. Again, it's only a cheap set off Amazon. I think they're $7.99, but they're actually razor sharp, and I'm hoping that with those I can recut the cross hatching and the grooves down the side of the stock, and then I should be treating the stock with teak oil. I could varnish it, but I don't really like the varnished finish on a gun stock. I find, especially in warm weather, it becomes quite sticky in the hands and unpleasant. So what I'm going to try is oiling it and polishing it to get a nice finish on it. It is nice wood, it's nice and smooth. I think it'll respond quite well to that treatment. I think that'll do for now. Before I have a go at the stock, I'm going to have a practice on a bit of scrap wood, because I've never done any wood carving before. That cross hatching is quite intricate, and if I make a mess of it, I can't put the wood back. So that's where we are. Right, I think that'll do for now. I hope you found this helpful and interesting, and I'll see you next time. Thank you very much to all those of you who have subscribed to my channel. I really didn't expect to get any subscribers, in all honesty. The channel was started as a bit of fun during lockdown in the UK, and it's quite heartening to find that people actually find my drivel interesting. Anyway, see you next time. Thanks for watching.